MIAA Monday rolls on with MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy joining me once again. Sir, as always, thank you for coming on.
Good to see you, Chris. Good to be with you.
Good to see you. A very busy week for the MIAA last week. A couple of announcements coming out involving the NIL process. We've talked about it a lot, the NILs, what that's going to look like. What led to, I guess, your announcement and the partnership that you guys have entered into?
Yeah, so we found out a couple of weeks ago that a law firm here in Kansas City, Siegfried Bingham, has been working in development of a name, image, likeness service for both universities, and then also a separate service that they offer to assist student athletes. But we were very interested in the service that they were building out related to support for colleges and universities, and it's called Empower You. And what they've offered are services really related to compliance and education. When all of this kind of got punted back to the state laws that were being developed, I recognized that it would be important to have people that understand how to interpret state law, how to read a statute, how to interpret an executive regulation or a governmental interpretation of a state law. So we actually were very interested in what Siegfried Bingham was working on, and we announced last week that we've entered into a partnership where a couple of their attorneys, Greg Whiston and Curry Sexton, will take the lead in providing, if needed, legal assistance to our compliance offices in interpreting state law in Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, or Nebraska, how it applies to various name, image, likeness situations, and provide schools with educational resources that compliance offices can use in educating their student athletes, their coaches, boosters, alumni, whatever groups need some help understanding kind of where that line is and what people can and can't do. So we announced last week that we're going to enter into a monthly service agreement with Siegfried Bingham and their service of Empower You to aid and assist our institutional compliance offices to try and navigate through a very complicated and brand new world of name, image, likeness.
You talk about the complicated part of all of this. Just how important is this Empower You? Because maybe we don't know what that gray area is, or if there is something that crossed the line because we haven't seen it yet. How important is those things to where the schools and compliance get a pretty good idea of what can and cannot be done? That way, no one's blindsided by, hey, this student athlete can't do this, this booster can't do this, the school can't do this.
Well, a couple of things. One, in the world of compliance and making sure that whether it's a state law or an NCAA regulation, compliance starts with consistency. Consistency in knowledge, consistency in information, consistency in education. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to provide from the conference office consistent resources throughout our MIAA membership. So everyone's kind of approaching this the same way, learning from each other, sharing information with each other. The state laws, there are some differences. There are some distinctions from state to state. Our attorneys at Empower You are going to have to help us navigate through that. But they'll be able, through this service, to provide some consistency throughout the MIAA membership in this area. The other piece of this, Chris, is that I think a lot of my friends in Division II are kind of, well, we're just going to sit back and wait and see what happens. And this may not really impact us. And this is really just about, a few Division I athletes having a chance to do some, big media splash. Well, I don't think that way. I want MIAA to be a leader in this area. I want student athletes on our campuses now and prospective student athletes to understand that the MIAA is open for name, image, and likeness business. If students want to find a way to be successful at the Division II level, compete for national championships, get a good education, and promote whatever their brand is, whatever it is that they are really talented at, and potentially that sponsors or businesses would want to provide them some money for those skills. I want that to be known that the MIAA and our institutions will help them be successful. And so it's about playing offense. We have to be proactive as a conference. It's a new day in intercollegiate athletics, and through this initiative, I think it'll help our MIAA member schools be ready to assist current student athletes, future student athletes more quickly than if we sat on our hands and just kind of waited to see what happened.
Well, I want to ask you about that part. Why do you take an aggressive approach? And maybe not just NIL, but we'll use NIL as an example. Why do you take an aggressive approach for the MIAA and just everything like this as a whole?
I really think that this is an important new area that MIAA coaches in every single one of our sports will find themselves having these conversations with current student athletes about reasons that they can continue to stay on our MIAA campuses and not, the grass isn't greener on the other side, not go into the transfer portal, the opportunities that they're seeking to play for great coaches and great facilities in front of the country's best fans, compete for national championships and do what it is that they want to do on the name, image, likeness front. They're going to be able to do that on our MIAA campuses. So that's an important message coaches need to talk about with current student athletes. And then this is the world of recruiting, I think. In the future, prospective students of all ages, they're going to be interested in what they can do with their social media following, or the skills that they have in singing, or as an author, or writing, or an entrepreneurial skills or business skills that they bring. So these are discussions that our coaches are going to have with prospects and parents, and it's important that the MIAA, as an association, as a conference, that we're there helping our coaches with these resources, with these educational tools to help them understand what they can do and what they can do in this world of name, image, and likeness.
One more question with NIL, then we'll get to some MIAA football here coming up. It looks like Governor Parson on the Missouri side of things is going to sign the NIL bill probably sometime this week. What does that mean for the Missouri schools as that becomes law once Governor Parson does sign that?
I think it provides some greater clarity. It'll allow our Missouri institutions to have some conversations with their in-house counsel and begin to talk about this new area of higher ed law and what they should be familiar with. And I think it also provides our institutions with some direction on the things that they need to have in place or be ready to do. For example, I think my reading of the Missouri law, there's a provision that requires every public institution in Missouri to offer some sort of financial literacy programming to every one of the student athletes every year. So that's going to take some planning. That's going to take some organization to figure out how that happens. Whether that's a series of workshops or one session over a few hours. Who's going to lead that? What resources are they going to tap into? So that law being in place, and now knowing that that is an expectation that we're going to have to fulfill to be in compliance with the state law will help our institutions with some planning.
There'll be plenty more NIL talk, I'm sure, as we go the next weeks, months. I mean, we've already talked about it for a month straight now, so I'm sure it'll continue on.
Yeah, it's here, and our schools know that, and we've had some MIAA student athletes that have already signed name, image, likeness opportunities. There will be more, I think that's a great thing for Division II student athletes. And I've said this before that a lot of these students are finding their way through college, Chris, the same way that you and I did. We had to piece together scholarships and grants and student loans and help from mom and dad and our summer job. And our student athletes are no different. Very few of them are on a full ride. And the money that they can earn, I think, through name, image, and likeness will help many of them reduce that student loan debt that they find themselves with as they work their way through college. And the fewer number of students we have graduating with big student loan debts, the better off we are as a society. So name, image, and likeness is a good thing, especially for Division II, and to help our student athletes have additional resources that will help them pay for school.
Commissioner Mike Racy on MIAA Monday. Join me once again. We're less than 2 months out from the start of fall sports season, game match wise anyway. MIAA football, after 2 years pretty much waiting for a season to happen, it's gearing up. Looks like everything's back. I don't like using the word normal. I don't know if that's the right word at all, but it looks like things are full steam ahead. Just we're less than 2 months away, from MIAA football again.
Yeah, and we've got big news. We're announcing today, Chris, that the MIAA Football Media Day in Kansas City is back. We are going to do that downtown Kansas City on Tuesday, July 27th. A full day of media availability for MIAA football coaches and MIAA football student athletes. We'll be doing that in the Little Theater, which is adjacent to Municipal Auditorium in downtown Kansas City. Municipal is where we obviously stage our men's and women's basketball championships. And we will have this theater dressed out appropriately so for a big day of football. And it'll be broadcast 8 hours live on the MIAA network. With student athlete interviews, coaches interviews. I think we start at 9 o'clock on that Tuesday morning. I'll take the stage with our football supervisor of officials, Phil Lowry, and Phil and I will talk a little bit about the upcoming season. And then each coach will go with a couple of student athletes in 15 or 20-minute increments. And it's good to be talking about football. And we've missed football. And it's going to be another great year in the MIAA. We have a close schedule, so every weekend will be MIAA action, and it'll be tough from week to week for every opponent. And I really think we'll see the usual suspects that will be fighting for the conference championship. But I think we'll have a few new faces, teams that we haven't seen before or in a while that will be making a run at postseason play, whether that's the playoffs or Division II bowl games. So I'm excited to get started. It seems like a ways off for the first kick. Labor Day still seems like a little ways away, but a couple of weeks, Football Media Day. A few weeks after that, we're in fall camp, and then a few weeks after that we have our first game. So we're ready, and it'll be a fun day, July 27th here in Kansas City, to get things started.
I know last year there was a lot of hoping to get that season in, because I'm trying to remember the timeline, but the timeline kind of gets a little fuzzy as you look back on is how many times you guys tried to keep a season alive, knowing that things are in place and we get football back, I guess what does that mean to you, just having MIAA football back this year?
Well, I think it's important. I think we've seen through the pandemic how important sports are in helping the country feel like things are getting back to normal. And I know in our communities, Pittsburgh, Kansas, Maryville, Missouri, Topeka, Kansas, Edmond, Oklahoma, game day is a big deal. And a lot of businesses, a lot of hotels, restaurants were hurt last year by the lack of Division II MIAA football game day. So it's important, I think, for just the overall spirit of our communities and folks that live in our towns and follow MIAA football to see it back. But it's also important for our communities from a business standpoint, getting students back on campus, having homecoming, having family day, having the reasons that people come back to campus and spend money in town. All of those things are important in driving that kind of economic engine in the places where we play MIAA football. So it's a great signal. Last year was a tough year. First the NCAA requirements that came out that made it really difficult for us to figure out a way to play. We were still on a path to figure that out, and then the NCAA announced that all Division II and Division III fall championships were being canceled, and that was a crushing blow. It hurt. In volleyball, Nebraska Kearney was coming off a season the year before where they had finished second in the country. We had a number of football teams that were ready and ready to make a deep run. We had top-ranked cross-country student athletes that couldn't compete for a national title. Men's and women's soccer programs that were also staged to make a run, and to tell all those student athletes that they're not going to get a chance to do what they love to do was very tough. So it's things are looking good. We still need student athletes to get vaccinated. That's an important thing. Student athletes coming to campus vaccinated will help them avoid issues related to contact tracing and having to be put in quarantine. If there is a student on campus that's sick that they've come into contact with. So, we've got some work to do to continue to get that message out to our student athletes before they come back. But it's going to look a lot more normal than it's looked for a while, and we're excited about MIAA football.
You talk about quarantine and protocols. I know Missouri's making a lot of national headlines at this point. What's your confidence level about everything being able to be okay, just even with this, I don't know, recent surge just from a Missouri standpoint?
Yeah, I think there's still some concerns out there with this variant. I think it's what are they calling it?
Delta. I think it's Delta.
The Delta variant. Yeah. There's certain parts of Missouri where we've seen certainly an increase in the number of hospitalizations and other issues. So far, it looks like the vaccine is working against this variant, at least in limiting the how sick someone might get if they're exposed to it. I'm worried, but I think that our schools are doing everything they can to make sure that faculty and students are vaccinated and getting back to campus and getting started on time. We're having regular calls with the NCAA, and they're keeping us updated. And obviously they're working with the CDC and other government agencies, and they're monitoring this Delta variant. But so far they don't anticipate that we're going to see some of the same protocols that the NCAA had in place for last year. So it'll be really left to each institution, each community on, whether or not there's a spike, and if there is a spike, does that mean that they need to do some more regular testing or have some limitations in place on fan capacity? But right now, I don't expect that from the NCAA. I don't expect that from the conference office, and it'll really be left to each campus and community working together to try to monitor what's going on. And my hope is that this variant will burn off, and we'll be ready to start the season with very little risk of COVID, and have a very successful and healthy academic year.
I know none of you signed up to balance public health with student athletes and everything else back when this all started. The mental health side of this too, for a lot of the student athletes, getting them back on campus this fall and knowing there's something to play for. Like you said, NCAA kind of came in last year, squashed the championships for Division II, but now that they know there's something out there for them, just how big is that maybe for maybe just the mental health of, the student athletes, the coaches, the conference, knowing that these things are coming back?
It's huge, Chris, and you've been around our student athletes. You see them work as in their team setting, and you understand how close knit those teams are. That's family to these student athletes, and certainly that was disrupted the past 16, 18 months, and so the fact that student athletes can lift and work out together and practice together and have meals together and team meetings together and bus rides together and getting ready for an opponent and ultimately competing and playing with each other, that's huge. And it's really part of their identity in who they are. All of these student athletes on our campuses were very, very successful high school student athletes. And that was a big part of their identity in high school. It's a big part of their identity in college. And that was somewhat taken away by the pandemic. And obviously when you take something that's so central to someone's being and who they are as a person, it obviously affects them not only emotionally or not only physically, but emotionally and mentally. And so it is something we talk about a lot in the MIAA and with our athletic directors and SWAs, and how important it is for our student athletes and how important it is for our coaches. We talk a lot about mental health for students. We miss, I think, opportunities a lot of times to talk about mental health for faculty, that need to be around their students to really have that energy of why they do what they do, and certainly for our coaches. I know the energy of the team, the energy of being around student athletes, provides them with really, the motivation to do what they do and why they coach. And so mental health is a big part of why the MIAA was aggressive in figuring out ways to play last winter and last spring. A lot of Division II conferences sat out the opportunity to play. We didn't. We were the first back and the first to get back on the basketball courts. And a lot of why we did that was understanding that the emotional and mental well-being of our student athletes was at stake.
I'll ask you one more question about MIAA football. I think we're all pretty excited to have MIAA football back this year. What's your expectations for this season when we're 2 years removed from a season? And if I remember correctly, last time we had a season, there were a lot of MIAA teams trying to get in the playoffs, and there was the whole selection and then the bowl games. Just what's your expectations? Because there was quite a few, I think, fighting for a spot at the top this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's going. I think we'll see some surprises. I think we're going to. It's going to be interesting to continue to see how Nebraska Kearney comes along. Nebraska Kearney, Missouri Western, a couple of programs that 2 years ago made it into bowl games and return a lot of student athletes from those teams. I think Northwest Missouri, I think Central Missouri will continue to be, to challenge for a title. Fort Hays will be there as well. We'll see a new coach at Pittsburgh State, which will be interesting to see. A new coach at Missouri Southern. It's always interesting to see how new coaches. This will be the Pitt State coach has been there for a year and a half, but this will be his first season.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see how they do. So I think it's going to be a really entertaining and exciting MIAA football season with new faces, maybe new teams competing for championships. And, I don't expect anything other than MIAA football teams being able to make a deep run, in the NCAA playoffs. That's what we're accustomed to, and I don't see this year being anything different.
MIAA Football Media Day, Tuesday, July 27th, Little Theater downtown. 9 o'clock start time, you said?
Yeah.
9 o'clock start time.
And if folks, if you don't have a reason to be down there, certainly catch all the action on the MIAA network, a free broadcast. We'll have every team, all the interviews. So, should be a great day.
I know you and everyone at the league office is very excited. I'm excited to have MIAA football back and all the sports back this fall. MIAA Commissioner Mike Racy, thank you once again for coming on with me.
Thank you, Chris. Good to see you.